Welcome to Love and Abuse, the show about helping you identify poisonous communication and toxic behavior. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. That's why it's important that you learn to pinpoint manipulative and controlling behavior so that you keep your power and your sanity. I'm your host, Paul Coliani. Welcome to another episode of Love and Abuse. All the information on this show is meant for educational purposes only. Always seek a professional for your mental health and well-being, and always pick your battles wisely. Speaking of battles, let's talk about the battle of whether to stay on a path that seems to be failing in some ways and seems to be toxic in some ways, or going on a path that seems to be a healthier path. I say seems because sometimes you're in a situation that you really don't know the best path to walk. And if you're having trouble making a decision and trusting yourself, then this can be a daily struggle. You may not know exactly which way to go, how to decide, what to decide, and what your next step should be. So I'm going to talk about two things today. One is a metaphor that I want you to remember. I'm going to speak in metaphors the first half of the show. And then the second half of the show, I'm going to read you a message that I received from someone that wrote to me before, and I addressed her issue on the overwhelmed brain in one of those episodes. But I'm going to read to you just a snippet of what she said before and what she's going through today, which has to do with the big decision. A big decision for you might be, should I stay or should I go? Or it could be another big decision that you need to deal with and you're just not sure which direction to go. So let's start with the metaphors. I'm telling you they're metaphors because I don't want you to think that I've gone all woo-woo. I don't want you to think I've gone all New Age. I'm not putting that down. It's just not my thing. I don't do that here. I talk very practical and applicable, and I want you to be able to take something away, something tangible. So speaking in metaphors isn't something I normally do, but I think it's very helpful to have these visualizations sometimes, so it gives you some motivation, inspiration, and understanding. I probably put those in the wrong order. Let's start with understanding. Gives you some more understanding, and then some inspiration, and then some motivation. And the understanding part is where you put together all of the pieces that are broken, laying on the floor, and you're not sure how to put them back together. That would be helpful to understand. If you can look at all those broken pieces and know how to put them back together, then you have enough of the picture to make a decision. That would be helpful, and that's what I'm trying to help you with today. So let's get this started. I think when you have a decision in front of you, I like to picture it as two paths. One path has way off in the distance a dark area, a darkness about it. The path goes all the way down and you see darkness at the end of that path. I mean, as far as you can see, I should say. The other path has a very long distance to travel as well, but you see light at the end of that path, or at least as far as you can see. But both paths have obstacles. Both paths have challenges. Both paths will be difficult. So darkness and light, they mean different things to different people. But if I were looking down a path and it was getting darker and darker, as opposed to lighter and lighter, I would personally choose the path that got lighter and lighter. But that's me. Typically, that's what people do. They'll choose the path that gets lighter and lighter because it helps them see better. But if that's not your thing, that's fine. You choose the path that works for you. I would choose the path that gets lighter. I want to go toward the light. Again, this is metaphors and visualization, but this is helpful for me when I'm confronting a decision that I need to make. So there's a path that leads toward the dark, and there's a path that leads toward the light. And they both have challenges. They're going to be different experiences, but I do see where one ends up as opposed to the other, and I would want to go down the one that makes me feel better. It's fulfilling. It makes me happier. That's where I would like to move toward. So I present these visualizations as a way to help you understand that sometimes, no matter what path is laying before you, you will have difficulty. That's actually a good thing to know and understand and accept, because if you know both paths are challenging, then you should probably choose the path that you will be happiest in the end, or at least a bit more peaceful or more comfortable. That is typically the way I make decisions. I'm looking at the end of the road instead of every obstacle in the road. Now, here's the thing. I mentioned that you could choose either path, and either path could work for you. Because what I like to teach on this show and my other show, The Overwhelmed Brain, is that if you are able to work on yourself and heal yourself and honor yourself and respect yourself and be able to stand up for what you know is right, then you become the light. You become what guides you and lights the path. That's why it really doesn't matter if you choose the light or the dark destination. You become the light that guides you, that helps you see, that helps you make decisions, that empowers you so that you do feel more comfortable in your own skin. Now, when I say stand up for yourself or stand up for what's right, that doesn't mean you have to be aggressive. That doesn't mean you have to put someone down. It just means honoring yourself to the fullest, seeing what you know is right for you and moving in that direction. A minor example is somebody asks you if you want coffee or tea. Something simple like that. And if you like one of those, this works. If you don't like one of those, pick a different beverage of choice. Somebody asks you, do you want coffee or tea? And then they say, I really enjoy drinking coffee with someone. How about we both have coffee? And you think to yourself, I don't want coffee. You might want coffee. If that's your beverage, of course, just swap these around. I don't want coffee, but I really want a good conversation with this person. So now here we are questioning ourselves and putting ourselves in a position where we are compromising and giving in to something else that isn't the full honoring of ourselves. And again, this is a minor example. This isn't something you have to do. There are times when you will choose coffee just because of that reason, but I just want you to see a pattern that might take place inside you when it comes to making a decision. And you can tell where this is coming from, and you might be able to tell where I'm going with this. The decision that I'm presenting you with brings up some maybe insecurity, like if I make the wrong decision, then I won't be liked, or I just don't want to cause trouble. I don't want to be somebody who's contradictory. I'm a conflict-averse person. This may or may not be you, but when presented with such a minor example, it's a great opportunity to practice self-love, self-care, self-respect, self-honoring. It's a great opportunity to practice all of that. So let's just say that you really wanted tea, and they said, let's both drink coffee. I think it'll be fun if we both drink coffee. Plus, it'll be a lot easier if I made the coffee and I didn't have to make the tea. They added that extra element, and here you are thinking, but I really want tea. And what do? This is your moment. This is an opportunity to practice being comfortable in your own skin and knowing that what you want is important. And what you want deserves to be heard by others, even if they don't like it. So let's just say that you said, well, I think I'd rather have tea. They might go, what? You want tea? But it would be so much more fun with coffee. I mean, we could dip our snacks into the coffee or whatever they dip. I don't drink coffee. Biscuits, I don't know. We can do this with coffee, and we can't do that with tea. Again, you're being put on the spot. You may feel a little pressure. You may feel a little stress if you can relate to this. But you have an opportunity to honor yourself. And when these little opportunities come, I want you to take advantage of them. I want you to say, you know what? This is what I want. I know it would be fun. I mean, you can say this any way you want, but if I was in this position, I know it would be a blast if we both had coffee, but I'm really in the mood for tea. I would love some tea. And hopefully you have a person that loves you and respects you and cares about you and says, you got it. You know, it would be fun with coffee, but I want you to have what you want. I want you to enjoy this moment just as much as I will. And if you have tea and I have coffee, then so be it. Let's do it. That I do hope you have in a friend, in a partner, in a family member, whoever you might be dealing with, that maybe could be sometimes difficult, or maybe they are a good friend and you might have trepidations about saying what you want. And this is one of those moments where you're practicing saying what you want. And when you do that, I need to ask you, who do you become? Who do you become one step closer toward? What do you become one step closer toward? In my opinion, you get one step closer to becoming the light. And when you take steps toward becoming the light, every step that you take, your light gets brighter and brighter. And no matter what path you take, the path is always lit and the decisions are always easier. And there's very little question in your mind what steps to take next, what decisions to make next. And pretty soon you're on your way to whatever destination there is, knowing there are challenges and knowing you will have the ability to face those challenges and overcome them. Because I know there are some challenging situations out there, and it can be very difficult. And I'm trying to help you understand that you can prepare yourself for these challenges and become stronger in yourself and become lighter in yourself by honoring yourself, by honoring and respecting and loving and showing compassion toward yourself each and every step of the way. You're going to slip here and there. You're going to take 2 steps back here and there. But every step you take toward empowering yourself and healing yourself helps you light that path no matter how dark it gets. And I know I'm using my version of light and dark. I would walk toward the light. Maybe you wouldn't. There are some people that find comfort in the darkness. So I don't want to take that away from you. I don't want to say that my way is the right way or the light way. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying you need to choose your path. I like the light. I like walking toward the light. I also like the dark. I like to sit in the dark. I like to be in the dark. But I like light more. Again, these are just metaphors, however you want to interpret them, as long as it helps you become more empowered and start healing whatever needs healing inside of you. Every step you take toward your empowerment gives you more momentum. And if you don't take any steps toward your empowerment, you don't get momentum. You get stuck. You stay in a rut. And I don't want you to stay there. So I'm going to leave the metaphors behind, and I might mention 1 or 2 here and there going forward because I have a message that I received that I'm going to go over and maybe answer this person's question about her big decision. This is a person who wrote to me on the Overwhelmed Brain show, and I read her message there, and that message went something like she helped her male friend through a divorce, or was his friend for a while he was getting a divorce, and he had a real challenging divorce, I believe, and then he finally got a divorce, and then they became a couple. And she told me of a story that happened one night where she went to a bar and he was talking to a woman that put her down, and he didn't know that woman put her down. And then they went home and he kicked her out because they had an argument about it, and she was in her bare feet. And then he did something to her car and it just didn't go well. So I addressed that. I'm going to find that episode just in case you want to hear that. In fact, that episode was number 371. And if you go to my website, theoverwhelmedbrain.com, you're going to look for the pain you sometimes need to go through to increase your quality of life. That's what the episode is called. The pain you sometimes need to go through to increase your quality of life. At theoverwhelmedbrain.com, you'll find a podcast page and you can search for that there. So if you want to hear the first part of that, that's where I talk about it. So today she wrote back and she gave me an update. She said she's struggling with a major life decision and she's wondering if I can guide her and maybe others who might be struggling. She said that my ex-boyfriend and I split up about a year ago, and I went through a period of no contact with him. I realized that I wasn't okay with the incident that happened. I think she's talking about where he kicked her out and she was in her bare feet. And I have some PTSD or anxiety when it comes to remembering it and other things in our relationship. However, I have managed to heal and forgive him, and now I'm in a place where I'm okay with it. He wants to make things work, but puts obstacles up, and I think he does this to try to get me to really want him or really want this relationship. Sometimes I feel he wants me to beg, but I also know it's not from a bad place, but more from a place of his own insecurity. I do love him, and he will always be my one true love, but I'm in an age and a place where I now want my next relationship to mean marriage and children. I'm struggling to decide if I try to make things work with him once again or move on. I think I'm in a place mentally and emotionally where I am strong enough to do either. We spent years of time investing in a relationship, which was great at times, a little one-sided and unbalanced for sure, but no doubt was great too in its own way. I've done a lot of listening to your podcast, reading books, and real knowledge collecting, and this is how I learn. I feel he may have Asperger's or some form of high-functioning autism. I don't think this changes much, and I know he will never admit to this or get help for it, but it explains a lot of his behavior. I'm stuck in a place where I don't know what to do, and I need to make a decision either way. If he has some form of autism, then surely the emotional abuse was unintentional, and maybe I took things the wrong way. If it's not autism, then is this just him and how he treats people? Please help. Okay, there's that message, and I hope that while I was reading this, you picked up some stuff that I'm going to talk about. First of all, thank you so much for the update, and thank you for writing this. I'm sorry you're going through this. Let's address some major points in this message, and a lot of them are relevant to what we just talked about. The two paths, the decision that you have to make. There's one direction or the other, and either way, you're ready to travel one path or another, which is good. That's really good. That empowers you to be able to make the decision either way. I was just talking about this with my girlfriend today or yesterday. We were talking about how when you're ready to accept either outcome, then every decision is easier. It's not like simple, but it's easier to make the decision when you're ready to accept either outcome. Coming to a place where you're ready to accept either outcome, that totally empowers you. If you can be okay either way, then you are in an empowered place. That involves not being attached to the outcome. That involves knowing there could be heartache, there could be pain and suffering, but still knowing that you can survive it because you're not attached to it. You are making the decision based on your best and highest interest. So when you make decisions on your best and highest interest, you're always making the right decisions. The challenge is getting past some maybe old dysfunction or emotional baggage or some insecurities in ourselves. And when we can get past those things, then we can make better decisions. But a lot of us will make decisions out of fear and insecurity, and maybe those decisions aren't the best. Maybe they aren't in our best and highest interest. So this is why we talk about this stuff. So coming back to this person's email, let me highlight some things here. You said, I have, however, managed to heal and forgive him, and now I'm in a place where I'm okay with it. I don't know if you've heard my episodes on forgiveness, but you don't have to forgive the unforgivable. I'm not saying his behavior wasn't forgivable. Absolutely. If you want to forgive and you feel good about that, where you can release it, you're not holding on to it, and when you think about it, you don't have PTSD, then that sounds like the forgiveness took place. That sounds like the forgiveness worked. It was the right thing to do. However, as you already know what I'm going to say, you told me that you do have PTSD regarding this event. So my question to you is, do you really feel good inside you that you forgave him? Can you say to yourself, I feel good about forgiving him, and it feels good to me that I was able to let that go because I truly believed that he feels bad about what he did to me, and he feels remorseful, and he really seems genuine and authentic when he apologized to me, do I feel good about forgiving him? Because if there's anything in your body that you feel when you say that, if any little bad feeling comes up, you know what I'm talking about. And if any little bad feeling comes up when you say that, it's probably not congruent. It's probably not in alignment with what you really wanted to do and what you really feel because of that feeling. That means there's something that you probably haven't let go of yet. I don't want to take this away from you. If you've forgiven him and it works for you, great. Now we can move on to the next subject. But I only bring up what I'm talking about because you mentioned you have PTSD. There's probably some healing to do there. Yes, there's probably other things that were going on that night. You said there was some other stuff in your other letter. I didn't read it in that episode I talked about. I read it then. And if that's the case, if there's some other stuff that you need healing around, and his part in that night has truly been forgiven and you can move on from it, then by all means, fantastic. Let's move on from that. I just want to make sure that you are congruent there, meaning you are in alignment. Your thoughts and your feelings match up. There's no doubt in your mind that that forgiveness took place and it's set and you're good with it. If you're not, I'm going to come back to what I said. You don't have to forgive people. I actually said you don't have to forgive the unforgivable, which is true. I don't believe you have to. But you also don't have to forgive people. My take and a lot of other people's take on forgiveness is all about yourself anyway. Forgiveness is, and this is my unique take probably, forgiveness is self-forgiveness in the sense where you are forgiving yourself for your role and how you showed up for whatever happened. So if you showed up in a way that you think you could have or should have acted better, or you should have not put yourself in that situation, if there's any small inkling of that inside of you, that's what needs to be forgiven. That small feeling or big feeling that you have about your role and what part you played in whatever happened is where you need to forgive yourself a break. That's how I look at forgiveness, and it helps me. It helps me to look back at something that I'm still upset by and I can't get over it. I have to look at my role, what I played in that role, even if I was too young to know any better. Because this is where we get stuck. We were too young to know any better, and it's hard to forgive the other person, or maybe it isn't, I don't know. But it's important that you reach inside and you look for anything that might still be there. Not that you did anything wrong, but a lot of the times when we're in situations, we might feel that we could have shown up better or should have done something differently. And because we didn't, there's a small amount of anger or upset toward how we showed up. If that's in there, self-forgiveness is so important. And I like to forgive myself a break for how I showed up that day. I like to forgive myself a break for being in that situation or not being smart enough to not get in that situation. I like to forgive myself a break in every possible way so that I can release it. I had issues with my stepfather, and for the longest time I hated him. He's done things that are absolutely unforgivable, and I won't forgive him. I don't have to. He hasn't earned that. He hasn't made amends. He hasn't been remorseful. And I'm not talking about things he did to me. I'm talking about things he did to other people that I love, that he does not seem to understand how much suffering they've gone through. So I don't need to forgive him. And the stuff that he put me through, I don't need to forgive him for it. Not because I don't want to forgive him. It's because once you forgive yourself for where your mind was or what part you played in whatever happened, once that is forgiven, it's typically forgotten. You won't forget, of course, but The feelings are forgotten. You don't feel it anymore. And this is why I asked about that little feeling that comes up. If you still have that negative feeling that comes up when you say, I've forgiven him and I feel really good about that. If that negative feeling is there in any way, then it's important to turn that forgiveness onto yourself and tell yourself, look, I forgive myself a break for how I showed up that day, for my part in this, for the actions that I took, for what I said, for what I didn't say, for what I should have said. All of this stuff, if that's in there, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. So that's the first part of this. I just want to make sure that the forgiveness part is taken care of, and using forgiveness in the way that I believe is more helpful and healthy for you. So the next thing you said is, he wants to make things work but puts obstacles up, and I think he does this to try and get me to really want him or want this relationship. Sometimes I feel like he wants me to beg, but I also know it's not from a bad place, but more from a place of his own insecurity. Okay, I want to tackle this right now and just squash it. And what I mean by that is when somebody who did something to you that needed to be forgiven and wants to get back together with you, but puts up obstacles and puts you in a place where you're almost begging, like he seems to want you to beg. Remember that path that at the end is darker? If I'm going to use darker as the negative aspect of this, that's what I'm seeing play out here. Because somebody who did something that needed forgiveness and felt really bad about it and really wanted to connect with you again, really wanted to get back together with you again, is not going to pull this kind of crap. I know I'm being a little bit direct and blunt. Please know it's tough love. But he's not going to pull this kind of crap. Somebody who has done things to you that needed forgiveness is going to lay out the red carpet, say they're sorry, I'm so sorry, let's connect again, let's talk, let's do what we can and see if we have something to work on. And if you don't want to do that, I totally get it. I'll leave you alone. They're not going to put up the obstacles. I remember when I wanted to get with somebody that we went through some tumultuous times, there was no way I was going to put up any obstacle because I really wanted to be with them again. So the fact that he's putting up obstacles, that tells me that every step you take that's this difficult so early on will continue to be difficult and continue to get darker and darker. This is the path I see. If I'm using dark as negativity here, I see at the end it's darker and darker as far as I can see, and I see every step you take going toward the darkness when I read what you just said here. And let me just address his insecurity and also maybe what you think might be autism or Asperger's. Let's just say that that's true. Let's just say that he's insecure. Let's just say it's Asperger's. Let's just say it's autism. What you said at the end of your email was maybe the emotional abuse was unintentional and maybe I just took things the wrong way. Let's just say that all of that was true. You were still being abused. I'm going to lay out the truth here as I see it. Even if somebody doesn't mean it, even if somebody has a psychological issue or Asperger's or autism or whatever it is, when they're being hurtful and you are suffering, you are being abused. Abuse typically does involve a conscious decision. It involves a conscious effort. And let's just say that what he was doing is unconscious. Can I really call it abuse? Okay, let's just take out the word abuse. Let's just say that he did all of this stuff and totally didn't mean it. He had no intention to hurt you whatsoever. The problem is, especially because he might have one of these conditions or lots of insecurity, is that it's almost an excuse to allow him to do it again. And the leniency that you're showing here and the high resilience and toleration that you're showing, that you would be more forgiving of the same behavior if it was unintentional. This is where I ask you to increase your light inside you to be more self-empowered in a way where you feel so good about yourself that no matter who does the behavior, no matter what condition they're in, you won't allow it. That's my take on this, is that when you receive any type of hurtful behavior, regardless of the person's intention, regardless of whether they're conscious of it or not, allowing yourself to be exposed to it is not self-love. I want you to see this as what you're doing to yourself and with yourself, not for him, not with him, but what you're exposing yourself to and what you will continue to expose yourself to if you choose to walk down this path with him. Now, I say all of this with the caveat that if you feel so empowered that you're ready to take either path, then you could still try to be with him, but you must never lose, again back to the metaphor, you must never lose your light. And what that means is when you see behavior, you say something about that behavior, or you do something about that behavior, or you just say, look, you do that again, I'm out of here. You need to be so confident in yourself and ready to accept the outcome no matter what it is so that you can feel empowered to say something like that. If you ever do that to me again, I am leaving. Those are my words. Maybe they're not your words. Maybe your words will be, if you ever do that to me again, I'm leaving for a week. I'm staying with my mom. I'm doing this. I'm doing something else. Whatever it is for you, but the accountability has to be there, and you have to follow through with action, with behavior. So if you say, I'm leaving for a week, you pack your bags that night. You don't have to listen to anything I'm saying. I'm just telling you that if you get in a relationship with somebody that you know causes you to suffer, regardless if they're conscious or unconscious of their behavior, you have to be so empowered in yourself that when bad behavior comes your way, you block it, you stop it, you walk away from it, whatever you need to do to protect you, because this is all about you and your foundation, who you are at the deepest level. Because once somebody gets past your personal boundaries and who you are at the deepest level, once they get inside, then they start to disintegrate who you are from the inside out. That's something I never want to happen to you. Never, never. Don't let that happen. I know some people are listening and that has happened, but this is why we're talking about this. This is what we need to do. We need to increase the levels of self-worth and self-esteem and confidence and decision-making and really get yourself lit up. That's empowerment. That's what you do, is you keep working on yourself and getting comfortable with any outcome that comes your way, because that is how you make empowered decisions. So in my opinion, I just gave you my opinion, but in my opinion, in a nutshell, he should be begging you. I'm not saying that's a good thing either. I don't want him to beg you. I think begging is not the best thing to do. But for him to expect you to beg him, that's not how this should go, because that means he's in control. And I'm not saying you should control. I think both of you should have an equal sitting in this. You should both have an equal say. And neither one of you should try that hard if this is meant to be. If this is meant to be, he's going to do everything he can to connect with you, and you're going to do everything you can to connect with him, and you're going to make the paths a lot easier to travel. But if this isn't necessarily meant to be, those paths aren't going to be easy to travel. Not that you can't make this work, because some people, they are tough and they say, look, if you cross that line, I'm going to push you back. And you're just going to have to deal with that, because if you really have a problem controlling yourself, I'm going to make sure that you never hurt me. And that might involve me being tough on you. I'm not saying you should do that either. I'm just saying some people can do that. But I want you to take my words today and really absorb them. And let me just say this final thing for you, this person who wrote the email. You said that if he does have Asperger's or autism, he'll never admit it and he'll never get help for it. How much more do you need to know than that? If you know he'll never admit something like that or he'll never get help for it, then what you're saying to me now is that the way he behaves today and the difficulty you're already facing today will continue from this point on. That's what I am reading. That's what I hear. Whatever he's doing today doesn't get better. It either stays the same or gets worse. If that doesn't help you make a decision, I don't know what will. You have to look at those two paths and you have to see the end where one is lighter and one is darker. And even if you are the light and you're lighting the path, then you have to see these obstacles right now so clearly because they're so brightly lit that they have to override any insecurities or fear in you, and you have to turn every decision into an empowered decision which comes from a place of what's best for you. So yes, I'm sure that it would be great to be in a relationship. You said that you love him, and if that's the case, sometimes people we love we cannot be with. Sometimes we have to love them from afar. And when we do that, we find out who they become and who they are and what they will do with their lives. What happens is that we end up getting together with people that have some dysfunctions or toxic behaviors, and we stay with these people, and when we do, they don't change because we are in an equation that facilitates the toxic behavior. It's sort of like the addict and the enabler. When an addict meets an enabler, then the addict gets to drink or smoke or inject as much as they want, and the enabler will clean up after them or make excuses for them. It's very similar to what sometimes happens in toxic relationships or abusive relationships, except it's not really the enabler, it's the victim, and the victim thinks that the abuser might get better or might see that they're hurting them and change their behavior, but it never happens. So the victim keeps searching and hoping and praying and wishing that they change, but they never do. Just like the enabler keeps hoping and wishing and praying that the addict will stop being addicted and prefer a person over a substance, but it never happens. Or if it does happen, it's very rare. But what I've seen is that when you break up that formula of the victim and the abuser or the addict and the enabler, when you break that up, when they're separated, the formula doesn't work for either one of them anymore. The addict doesn't have the enabler, and the enabler doesn't have the addict. And then they can do some self-discovery. They can find themselves. They can go on that quest if they want to, if they choose to heal and improve themselves in some way. That's when they focus on themselves and learn something about themselves and reflect on what they went through and realize that there can be a better life for both of you. The addict can realize that they keep losing people they love and maybe make the decision to stop being an addict. And, that might be tough. They might have to seek help for that. Just like the victim or the enabler, and I'm not saying that they're the same thing, I'm just using them as examples, they can see that they are different without perhaps a dysfunctional person or a toxic person in their life. And because they experience life without that person, maybe for the first time in a long time, they discover something new about themselves that they didn't realize was still there. And that new feeling that they get is when the fog has lifted and they're able to think clearly. The fog can lift in both people when those people aren't together anymore. It doesn't always, but it can because it has the opportunity to. In other words, when two people separate in a situation like that, the fog finally has an opportunity to lift where it wouldn't have before when they were together. So to the person who wrote this email, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for sharing this. I wish you much strength and I wish you much clarity as you make your decision. I definitely won't tell you which road to travel. I definitely won't tell you which path that you need to take. All I want to tell you is that it's very important that you consider what's best for you, even if there's loss, even if there's fear, and that could mean you do get back into a relationship with this person, but you set some ground rules that are so strict that he never pulls any of that crap again. I have personal opinions on this, and if we were drinking coffee, I would probably give you a little bit more tough love. But I'm trying to be objective, and I'm trying to see all sides of this. And I hope you do find clarity and make a decision that's right for you. Thanks for writing, and thanks for listening to another episode. Share this with others that might benefit. Love and Abuse is the official podcast of the MEAN Workbook, an assessment and healing guide for difficult relationships. The workbook provides an evaluation of your relationship based on a 200-point assessment. It is geared toward romantic relationships, but many have used it for family and others in their life that are being manipulative or emotionally abusive. If you're in a difficult relationship and you would like to pinpoint the unhealthy behaviors causing you to leave so many interactions feeling bad, let the workbook help you discover the specific components of bad behavior and put into words what you're experiencing. Get the tools you need to help you reach clarity. Visit loveandabuse.com for more information. This show exists to remind you that you are not alone and you're not going crazy. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. You deserve honesty and sincerity. You deserve to be treated as worthy and significant. Because you are. Thanks again for joining me. We'll talk again soon.